only right that at the beginning of a new year, we sit down and have a little bit of a rant about the trends of the year that has passed. So I went on my Instagram broadcast channel and asked you guys to share the fashion trends that you really disliked from last year, possibly even hated. And so I've basically gone and picked these 7 most popular ones, and we are going to discuss in today's video. What do I think? Where did they come from? Blah, blah, blah. Let's just have a little bit of a sit and a rant. Guys, if you're new here, my name is Cassie and I'm a self-diagnosed luxury addict. I put out videos on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, so if you like luxury fashion, then you're probably gonna love it here. So head on there, subscribe, turn on the bell, become a member of our luxury addicted family. When are we going to rehab? Never. The top most disliked trend of 2024 was, wait for it, drum roll please, excessive bag charms. Okay, so it seems as though nobody really has a problem with bag charms. People have a problem with excessive amounts of bag charms or cheap bag charms on expensive bags. We're going to tackle both of them within this one bubble today. So, 2024 was the year of Jane Birkinifying your bag. Famously, she basically put whatever she wanted on her Birkin. The thing is that she didn't think about it, okay? There was no sort of strategy to do with this bag or how it was being styled or what was hanging off of it. So it's quite interesting that now it's become a trend because she probably did it because it wasn't a trend and blah, blah, blah. It's all very complex. But basically, people have been taking their bags, whatever bag it may be, and adorning it with all sorts of click, clack, tidbits. I've sort of come down with what my theory on this is. I've shared it before, but basically I think it's a way of sort of differentiating your pieces from the next person's, right? We may both have the same bag, but the way that we have accessorized said bag is very different, shows a bit of your personality. Some publications are calling the rise of chaotic customization a trend that we will be seeing more of in 2025. Let's see. That was me keeping my eyes open, if that wasn't clear. But yes, whereas in some cases people are putting the odd bag charm hanging off, waving on the side of a bag. Some people are also putting sort of 5 to 50 bag charms dangling off. You can hardly see the bag anymore, actually. You just sort of have to weasel through a forest of bag charms to get to it. I think it's also very interesting that designer brands have begun to use bag charms as a new entry point into the brand. So for example, Miu Miu has like tiny versions of their famous ridiculous nano mini skirt that was down the runway in what, like spring summer 2022 or something like that. Little versions of, we've seen Hermes do the little versions of the Irans, but Miu Miu is doing their own sort of miniature versions of iconic pieces from the house. But the other thing that this sort of allows people to do is you may have an unbranded bag, but you can have a Miu Miu, Louis Vuitton, whoever else bag charm hanging off of it, right? And it doesn't matter if you have the bag charm of the brand and the bag matches and all of that. Actually, it's probably better if it doesn't, right? It's meant to be this sort of free-for-all. Then you have the aspect of like the cheap sentimental items hanging off of really expensive bags. Be it the ever so popular Labubu's. These are these sort of little gremlin-like, they're actually quite big. Are they out of a blind box? I don't know much about these very interesting characters. And I also hear that they're quite sort of elusive and slightly menacing smiles on their faces. But they've sort of oddly gone very hand in hand with the luxury bag charm trend, and the Labubus are hanging as well, right? The next trend that is hated is the trend of the micro shorts. So this trend I feel like really reared its ugly head in 2023, and we really still felt the effects of it in 2024. This is essentially wearing tights, sometimes no tights, sometimes tightsless, with a sort of large pant masquerading as a pair of shorts. There really is no context to this. You know how I gave context with the bag charms, why they're doing it? I don't have context for this. And how do I feel about it? I personally do not have the confidence to go out 2 cheeks to the wind. But if I did, I still wouldn't. I don't think I would. Even like a 3-inch denim short, I'm like, I've ruled myself out of there. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe at the grand age of 31, I have officially checked myself out of being eligible for a micro short. It's just, you know what? It looks unfinished to me. It looks like we've got unfinished business. It looks like halfway through dressing, somebody was like, we need, the Uber is outside. And you just were like, sod it, let's do it. At what point do we go from, this is a piece of underwear and this / bikini bottom and this is a pair of shorts? What is the definition? Where does one go from one to the other? That's my question. What constitutes a micro short and how is that different from a pair of knickers? Is it just the thickness of the material? The next trend, I feel seen. Because when I spoke about not wanting to participate in this trend towards the end of 2024, you know, a few people commented and were like, oh, give it a go, like it looks great, whatever. Okay, barrel jeans. So happy that it turned up in this list. A new jeans style really stepped into the limelight in 2024. And how can we describe this? I mean, the clue is in the name, barrel jean, modelled after the sort of the bowed out body of a barrel, worn on the legs. I think I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's not really a silhouette I've wished to have. Do I have a pair of sort of very slight, and when I say slight, I mean it is not, I wouldn't even call it a barrel jean. They just ever so slightly give on the edges. But some of them are very exaggerated, and it's literally like trouser begins, barrel, ankles. Alaya has a pair, and again, I've like seen some people do it, and I'm like, how are you pulling that off? That to me seems like wizardry. That to me seems like you've gone and done the impossible. Good for you, you know, could never be me. So I understand this. I don't think it feels very fashiony. It feels very like, if you don't get it, like you're not on this level. And I will be the first person to admit that I'm extremely commercial, okay? The avant-garde, I like the odd little bit here and that, I can appreciate it. Is it for me? No. Would we ever be describing barrel jeans? I'm gonna put it in the avant-garde category. I'm gonna say that it's an interesting choice there. This one came up and I was waiting for this. It's actually quite funny that this hasn't come up earlier. The Margiela Tabies. I don't think I've ever spoken about the Tabies on this channel, which is shocking. Popularised, I would say, in luxury fashion by Maison Margiela. These are a very controversial shoe. They're actually modelled off of a traditional Japanese footwear style, where there is sort of an invisible post between toes 1 and 2. So you've got this sort of separation. I personally have never put my feet into a pair of Tabies. I would be interested to know what that feels like, just sort of sensationally. Just like how that feels not having my 2 toes touch. The Tabies come in a number of variations. And if you remember, in September of 2023, there was a boom in the popularity and the intrigue, actually, of Margiela Tabies because there was a story time that had gone viral on TikTok about the Tinder Tabby thief. A woman had gone home with this man and he'd gone home with her and he stole her pair of Margiela Tabies. So people were like, what are the Tabies, blah, blah, blah. And previously they've been very fashiony. They've been very, if you know, you know, very like, oh, if you don't like these, then I'm sorry, you're just not on the fashion level, right? That's at least how I felt. Like, I felt as though I was far too uncool to appreciate a tabby. And whilst once again, there are some people that will wear them and I'm like, cool, you're really doing something there and really pulling them off. And I am simply not that girl. These sort of hoof-like shoes come in ballet flats, boots, pumps, sandal versions, any version you can think of. The tabby exists most likely. And although Margiela has really sort of like popularised the shoe, they are by no means the only brand that does them. They're just the ones that I think sort of in like Western luxury fashion culture, we just know the most. So yes, I'm sure you're not surprised that this really isn't my vibe, and I understand why this isn't a lot of people's vibe. Carrying on with shoes, the next two that came up, again, I feel like they're cousins, so we're going to roll them into one. This was mesh ballet flats and clear PVC shoes. I feel as though we have ranted a decent amount about clear PVC shoes over the lifetime of this channel, but I will not miss out on an opportunity to do it. It just never gets better, really, and I fall victim. I do. Every so often I see when I'm like, I'll get over it. I don't care that it's PVC, I just like the vibes. And then you wear it and it's digging into the front of the shoe, and with every step you go, why did I do this to me? Have I not suffered enough? I understand the frustration and I see when I hear you. Now, specifically, let's go back to the mesh, and then we've got one that sort of straddles the two. In 2024, we had the rise of the Alia mesh ballet flat. Again, I sort of feel like a lot of people's dislike of this comes with the fact that it's sort of structureless. I will say, I would prefer the wind blowing through my tootsies via a mesh ballet flat than I would in PVC. Okay, so I don't mind the idea of like, it's hot, I want the air flowing everywhere it can get to, and if it can get to me on my feet, even better. I understand that. I will say that I do think the lack of structure makes it look a little bit sort of, yeah, it just looks a bit shapeless and a bit like, so if we could maybe bridge that gap, maybe they might be a bit better. The Row came out with the Mara sandal, these little jelly mesh shoes that unfortunately seem to be breaking on people, and then they sort of pulled production because they were, I think they were either like replacing them or giving people refunds. And then they were like, listen, it's not even worth it. So either way, they were taken away from us, rightly or wrongly. But again, it's a similar thing. I think the jelly shoe concept is also something that a lot of people are like, this is for children. Okay, when I was 4, I had jelly shoes. What a time that was. But I don't mind the jelly shoe aspect. I just think that the whole look of it just sort of looks sort of fisherman-y. And I don't like a fisherman's sandal. But I do like the idea of like a mesh breathing through. So the next one that came up that I found quite interesting was somebody said Balenciaga, and the fact that, you know, even it's got the problematic stuff and all of that, but also the fact that it just has zero ties to what it was historically as a brand. Let's put aside the sort of problematic ad campaign that happened, is it 1 or 2 years ago now? Time flies. So, because that's sort of like, that's an issue in itself. And some people have like moved past it and whatever else, and there have been apologies and things like that, right? And so that sort of comes down to a personal thing. If we take it for the design aspect, obviously you have Demna, who I feel like in that sort of 2013, 2015 era really lent on sportswear and streetwear, and that really gave the brand a huge boost. The issue is, it's just more of the same. Like, it feels like every single collection that comes out from Balenciaga is, I can't tell it from the last one. And fair enough, I'm not really keeping tabs on that, so maybe I should shut my mouth. But we're used to the gimmicks. We're used to a crisp packet bag and a pair of shoes that looks 7 times in volume of a normal version of that shoe. We're used to sort of these sorts of things. So all of the little shock value design aspects aren't really all that shocking anymore. Again, if you sort of want to look back on what Balenciaga was as a brand, the couture, maybe the couture, current couture actually leans more back on this, which sucks if you're not a couture client. But things like the hourglass blazer, the hourglass coats, those aren't things that we see very often, or you have to like actually be looking and possibly go to a store and see if you can ferret one out. It's not something that is lent on as a core part of the brand that you see a lot throughout the designs. It's, I mean, you know, I'm not the biggest, I was never the biggest Balenciaga fan in general. There's a lot of tomfoolery going on there. To be honest with you, I'm sort of surprised that Demna is still there. I think that we are so used to what it is, it's not all that exciting, but then again, one thing that a lot of brands are leaning on, and it's working in their favour, is the nostalgia. So the Balenciaga City bag sort of having a bit of a resurgence towards the end of last year going into this year. That helps them. They've also done 2 bag launches that have done really quite well with the Rodeo and the Bel Air bag. Finally, I thought this one was very interesting. Not necessarily a trend that if you open Vogue is going to say one of the hottest trends, but it is definitely a trend that we have seen across luxury brands, and this is brands copying each other. This is not a new concept. This is something that brands have always done. They've always gone, oh, that bag style's looking really quite good. Maybe we do our own, right? So we see this. I feel, though, it has become very apparent because of one thing in particular, but as an example, Prada has a bag that looks very similar to the Rome Margot, the Celine Romy, and the Hermes Lindy bag. And again, listen, allegedly, the Loro Piana L19 pouch obviously has been doing really well. Bottega have come out with their Bang Bang Vanity. Louis Vuitton has like a little vanity top handle situation. And sometimes it's like, what's the difference between it's a trend, vanity top handle bags are a trend, and brands copying each other, right? And sometimes it's very obvious and sometimes it's a little bit more, you know, blurry. But I feel as though the reason that this has become more obvious to us is with the whole quiet luxury thing, because we saw brands whose sort of identity was never down that path, shifting onto the minimalist, neutrals, quiet luxury path. And we're like, who is this? This is not who you've been showing us for the past solid 25, 30 years. And so I think it became even more obvious with that. I hope that brands just realise to lean heavily and go all in on, I love this, as though I actually play poker. I don't know anything about the card games, okay? But they need to focus on their superpower. I've said this and I will say it time and time and time again. If you are known for something, think of the brands that have done well in recent years. It's because they have a clear identity, they know who they are, and they're not bending for anybody. Sodding Hermes, you're never going to go there and have the, you know, trendiest sodding jacket that's tailored like that and, you know, makes you look like a supervillain, okay? You're never going to get that from them. But what you are going to get is that sort of timeless, classic, whatever vibe. Same thing with like a Brunello Cucinelli, same thing with a Loro Piana, right? And fair enough, yes, quiet luxury was happening. So they're going to even more be, you know, riding that wave. But you've got brands like Tiffany. If Tiffany's struggling, lean on your silver. Nobody else to that caliber of fine jewelry, designer fine jewelry, has that to lean on. So sodding run with it and run it straight to the finish line. Burberry in your trench coats. I see you now. I see now you've decided to lean on the classics. It's about time. So this is my hope for luxury brands. I really hope that you've got it in you. You know, here's my little pep talk. It's in there. You just need to look for it. Anyway, there we go. Those are the trends that you hated. Let me know if there's any more in the comments that you're like, cannot wait to see the back of that. I will see you in my next video. Here is a link to another video in case you haven't already seen it. Have an amazing morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. And in the words of my father,
if you've enjoyed it, tell your friends. If you haven't, keep your mouth shut.
I'll see you in my next one. Mwah. Bye, guys.